Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Product Expert Fireside series here. This is the first one of the year. Today's subject is going to be about building impactful products. We're joined here by Gabby Bufrem. Gabrielle, say hi.
Hi, everyone.
So a little bit about ProdPad before we get started as well. So who here, let us know in the chat, who here has been using ProdPad? I would love to hear from you as well. So ProdPad is the tool that myself and my co-founder built because we were product managers ourselves. We needed something to help us keep track of ideas and feedback and experiments and all the objectives that we had. So we built something for ourselves. And at first it was used internally only, but we started sharing it with the product people around us. And we realized that ProdPad was giving us and others control and organization and transparency. It created this single source of truth for all those product decisions, and it's now being used by thousands of teams around the world. You can actually try it for free. You could jump in right after this webinar and start trying it out. We'd love to get your feedback on that. You can try it with example data as well. We have what we call a sandbox mode. And the sandbox mode is basically a version of ProdPad that's preloaded with example data. You can see lean roadmaps, OKRs, experiments, feedback, all that stuff thrown in there so you can play with it, see how it all fits together, and see how it might work for your own organization. And our team is made up of product people. It's founded by product people. We've got product people throughout the organization. So we'd love your feedback. Jump in, give it a try. Let us know what you think. And of course, as product people, we're always really proud of the things that we're constantly building and making a difference out there for you. So one of the latest things that we've just launched here is the ability to prioritize with confidence. So those of you who've used ProdPad for past years, you know that we have our priority chart, the ability to map out your ideas in terms of impact versus effort to see where they sit in that across the way when you're looking at your whole backlog all at once. What we've now done is added the ability to map out those ideas based on confidence as well. So you can see which ideas are low confidence, very low confidence, which ones you've built up enough confidence in that you should start working on. So you can now use this color guide to get a good idea as to where these ideas are, and then start figuring out which of those you should start putting on the roadmap and which ones you might want to hold back until you've got a little bit more confidence in. So something new in there. It is in beta. For those of you who have been using ProdPad, you know that we've got a beta mode. Very easy to switch on or off if you're not into that. Most of our customers are. It gives you a chance to try out the new stuff we've got. This is the newest thing. So jump in there, try it out, let us know. So all that said and done out of the way, I am really excited to introduce you officially to Gabby Bufrem. So I've known Gabby I looked it up actually, Gabby, the other day. It's about 6 years ago. We met at Lean Startup Summit in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
We were both leading roundtables there, if you remember.
Yeah.
You were leading one on data and metrics. I was leading one about product culture. And we ended up hanging out at lunchtime, right? And we just hit it off. We ended up talking about product stuff. And we've ended up hanging out in product hotspots all around the world in the years since then. And by product hotspots, I mean product conferences that we both end up at. So this is why I'm so excited to have Gabby as my very first guest of the year. And she's going to be talking about building impactful products. Now, a little bit about Gabby. She is a fractional CPO, Chief Product Officer, and a product coach. She's previously served as head of product at the mental health startup, Little Otter Health, where she increased LTV by 40% and improved conversion by 70%, which is huge. She's trained product managers for over 4 years through Mind the Product and is a speaker at conferences worldwide. And prior to Little Otter, Gabrielle worked at Pivotal Labs in Paris and Singapore, where she worked with companies like Renault, Orange, and the Port of Singapore, and rebuilt Singapore Airlines mobile apps. And she also runs a course on building impactful products, which is exactly to the topic of today's conversation. So welcome, Gabby. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. Great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much. Wow, this is an incredible introduction. I am so excited to be here. Getting to hang out with you in general is really fun. And now I get to hang out with you and answer everyone's questions. And I mean, I can watch this again. This would be great.
Excellent. Thanks so much again. So I would actually love to hear from your point of view. I mean, you don't often get a chance to talk to people who are fractional CPOs. Like, what does that mean? What's the day in the life with you?
Totally, absolutely. So I have like a couple companies that I work with, and these are normally super small startups. They're like Series A, or they're going to raise a Series A, and they realize that they need product help and that they mostly need product leadership help. They also realize that they probably only have one product manager. So hiring a head of product or a CPO would be a really expensive hire, especially in this market. So what I mostly do as fractional CPO is coach the founder, coach that product manager, and help them out with product strategy, team topology, really figuring out where they need to focus on. And I do that kind of part-time for a few different companies.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So how do you end up getting involved with these types of companies? I mean, are these companies who are at a particular stage, or companies who are in between CPOs?
Yeah, I think there's like definitely a range. For me, it's mostly like really early stage startups that have that need, identified that maybe their founder is not a product person, or that they've done everything that they can and they now need more help. And they reach out to me normally, or I get introduced to them through an investor or someone that we mutually know in common. We normally have like a date, or that I like to call. It's just like we hang out, we see if we like each other, we see if like we vibe and if we work well together. And then I have an entire conversation of like, what does success look like? What is great? If we crush it, where do we go? What does that look like? How much value does that have? And that's where I normally kick off any sort of kind of fractional CPO work.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I can definitely see the value of that. I mean, having been a product person who's transitioned into a product-minded
Yeah.
founder, CEO,
Mhm.
having to go through that awkward period of, oh, wait, when do I let go of the product and who do
Yeah.
I let that go to? I mean, I was fortunate. I was able to hire somebody in the product role who's, I mean, frankly, she's better at product than I ever was.
Yeah.
But,
Exactly.
I know it's so hard to find that person and to let
Yeah.
go of that role. And so to find
Yeah.
somebody to do that is amazing.
Yeah. And I actually think this is like potentially kind of a hot take, but I think that it's really important for founders to own product for a long time. Like up until like really close to product market fit. Like these are the people that have the vision. They are the ones that really imagine this product coming to life. And what I really love to do is help these people get there. So I have the expertise and I've done it before, so I can help them. But I normally advise founders to not hire really senior product leaders super early. First, because these people are not going to get to do what they love the most, which is lead and empower and coach other people. Ideally, they're going to have to do a lot of kind of like IC product work, which I mean, I can speak for myself. Like I am a way worse product manager than I ever was because I just haven't done it in a long time. I have led teams, I've led multiple teams, and that's a very different skill set that I mean, thankfully I'm good at that, but I have definitely lost a lot of my like IC muscle. So like having to flex both and do both extremely well is really rare.
Yeah, that's a really fair point. And actually, I want to back up to the point that you made was that turning point around the product market fit. Like,
Yeah.
what do you consider product market fit? And there's no wrong answer because I think everyone has a different definition of it.
Yeah. I think everyone has a different definition of it. I think today I'll have an answer and like tomorrow it might be different. I don't know. But especially in this case around like me evaluating if a company has enough product market fit for me to come in, is that there is enough desire in the market that as like shitty or as difficult as the product is to use, because I mean, anyone that has been at a startup here knows that like everything is broken at the beginning. People still want to use it. And there is like enough traction that you feel that if you make some things better, if you invest in certain areas, like this thing could really take off. So it's at that point, if you think about the like walking to the skateboard to whatever, that you're like turning from like the bike to the car. That's when I think it really kind of is showing that the market is there and ready to accept it.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And actually, I look back on ProdPad and remember those days when everything
Yeah.
was, I myself and my co-founder coded the first version. And I remember being
Yeah.
overrun with support tickets, but people going, well, we want it to do this, we want it to do this, but
Yeah.
we're still using it. We're like, okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Exactly. Yeah. Or people are like complaining about your product on your product, which you're like, okay, well, clearly you
Yeah.
don't hate it that much. Like you're still here. So like, that's good.
You feel that pull. You feel that pull.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one thing that really resonated with me is you feel that pull. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that resonates. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's also like the financials, right? Like you're starting to make like enough money that you're like, okay, this is like more than a hobby. This is like for real. And
Yeah.
there is like a real path towards us like raising more money to accelerate this versus have to pivot or do something completely different.
Right. Yeah. And I guess that's the key thing is that you need to have that pull that's driving that money before you bring in that product leader. Bringing in that product leader isn't necessarily going to be the thing that does that catalyzes that change, is it?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's really on the founders to get there. And I think like people like me or other product coaches or fractional CPOs like can help. And like we love working with startups because it's really, really fun. And I mean, a lot of us like ended up doing that before and like are really drawn to the space. But I really do think it's on the founders. And it's a really hard job as like a product leader if the thing is not kind of ready yet, because you come in, if you do exceptionally well, like you have been given like all the reins, the founder's ready to give product up, there's like all these things that need to be true in order for you to do really well. If you crush it, it's like on the founders and of course like on you too, but it's like mostly on the founders of like, oh my God, you got there. And if you don't do well, it's like 100% on you because like it is the product. So it's a really like tricky position. And I think that there isn't like yet just like a clear metric of what product market fit is. But when people are thinking about taking on really early leadership roles in companies, it's a conversation I advise people to have in terms of what they consider product market fit, how much the founder's really ready to give it up or not. And most of the companies I help really early stage, the founder's not ready to give it up. And I tell them that they shouldn't, they should keep it, but they can call me if they need help.
Yeah, that makes sense. And this actually draws to mind, I think it was a tweet thread that I'd seen with a bunch of screenshots, which was a lot of people in the thread were making fun of Bill Gates because he was micromanaging. It was this email from Bill Gates to some leaders in his team or maybe ICs in his team, I don't know. But he was complaining in a ton of detail about how difficult it was to install, oh, I can't remember what it was, some movie making app or something like this onto Windows, whatever, was it Vista back then or XP or something like that, right? And it was in quite detail, like it was walking through everything that had gone wrong and how long it took and, you know, how he had to do this and it asked him to reboot and all these other steps. And you know, some people are saying, oh, well, what's Bill Gates doing, you know, a CEO doing, you know, right down in the guts doing that. He should be up here. I was like, well, actually, no one else is going to care to that detail to report something that's of that level. But actually, you know, being able to install an app on your OS is actually pretty critical. So somebody does need to report it to that level of detail. I'm sorry, but if you're not willing to report it as a CEO, then no one else is going to. You can't rely on your customers necessarily doing so when you're in those early stages of building, a crap product. Or like Windows is kind of doing, they're going through like a trough, I think. It kind of sloped downwards at that point in time, and he was trying to bring it back up to some level of quality.
Yeah, exactly. I think like I've definitely told CEOs you need to be more involved. I told CEOs you need to be less involved. There's like, again, in product, there's like no right answer, right? There are people that like, they are so involved that like Slack is just them being like, hey, this doesn't work yet. That doesn't work. I'm like, let's like not do that anymore. The team knows, they're aware, right? But the highlighting and also the compiling of like the strategic context around what the team needs to execute and why, that's something I want them really involved in.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, you know, this is something we've had conversations around in the past is like how much the product manager has to play an active role in managing the people around them, but not just managing down or managing, you know, influencing around them, but also influencing upwards.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a huge skill for any product manager, any senior PM, and anyone honestly that wants to go into product leadership moving forward, because most of what you do, and I really like thinking about, and whenever I coach people, I think about like people, product, process, and I want people to have enough knowledge about the product. That's very important. I want them to have like the process skills to be a PM, but I tell people like, if you want to be a leader, like the people thing is what we should focus on the most. Like I want us to spend, I don't know, 50% of our time or more in this area, because it's really what takes you from like being an IC to actually being like a leader. And that's something I look at when I am both now coaching people, but before when I was managing people, it's like, when I need to elevate someone, can they influence me? Can they influence someone else? Can they really present a case that is compelling and clear on why we need to do something that resonates with senior leadership?
Right. Yeah. Now, there's no way that that comes entirely natural. I mean, you look like a natural when you're doing it. I've seen you slide into all sorts of companies and sort of make things happen. But I mean, how did you develop that skill?
The skill around like influencing people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing for me that was like an unblocker. So I'm from Brazil originally. I spoke Portuguese my whole life, and I started learning languages pretty early. And I was always very curious and interested in languages. Like I taught myself like English for a little bit, and I created my own like little method. And I always wanted to learn Spanish and French. So I speak these languages now. And I think it was very clear to me that everyone around me had a very different desire than what I had. And I think the unlocker was realizing that that desire is not wrong. It's just their desire. It's what they want. And it's almost like a different language. So I say to people that like really good PMs and PMs that are extremely compelling are incredible translators, because you need to be saying what you're saying, but in a way that resonates with other people. So when I'm talking to salespeople, I need to first understand, almost like a user interview, like what matters to you? Like what brings you joy? Like what do you like? What do you enjoy? How do you like to work together? And at least with sales, for example, I've learned that it's a lot around building trust. First, they're like commissions based. They have things they need to hit. They also need to trust me that I'm going to help them get there. So if you know what people are looking for, I think it's way easier to talk to them in a way that it resonates.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a lot of sense. So what do execs typically want? Are there any hacks or tricks to
Yeah.
figuring out what your bosses want, what your investors want, and that sort of thing?
Yeah, totally. So I think, yeah, my top tip is I would say having this conversation is actually normally I would have it with my reports. I was like, hey, this is what I look for, this is what I'm excited about, all of that. But if someone came to me and was like, hey, I want to understand how I make you look good. I want to understand how I get you promoted, how I give you success. I'd be like, awesome. Yeah, let's have that conversation. That sounds great. Because it shows that both curiosity and also level of care that they want to make sure we all succeed as a team. And especially if you're coming like towards someone that's like more senior than you, I think is a really powerful conversation. So I think having those conversations, aligning on what great looks like for them and for you, and also how you can help them get there and how you can help your team get there is super important. And I'd also say the like higher up you go, the more stuff you have going on, right? So when I was a PM, I used to be able to think about product all the time. And then I became a senior PM and I started thinking way more about like strategy and business too. And then I became a group PM and I had a product, and my life was like marketing and ops and this and clinical, like everything was also a part of it. So I had honestly way less headspace for product stuff. So this is like contextualizing why I think the higher up you go, the more like bullet point, simple, just like really clear, concise communication matters. It's not because people are not interested and excited about hearing the whole story. It's because they only have a certain amount of time and honestly, just like brain allocation to having that conversation. So if you can simplify it for them, like TLDRs, bullet points, like that is, I think, a really, really awesome way to get through to execs.
Right. Yeah. And so it's all about getting the right level of communication to the right person and understanding, what it is that they are trying to get to. One of the things I always like to think about is what they're incentivized by. And if you have incentives, you can make magic happen. If you don't, then obviously things just grind to an absolute halt.
Absolutely. And that's something I was having a conversation with a company the other day, and they're B2B. And I told them, like, your sales team needs to have the same objective as the product team. Like, it just needs to be the same. Otherwise, they are going to go off, do the thing to get their objective, and we are going to go off, do our thing to get to our objective. And our objective is actually the same. We want to sell more and we want to sell better product. Like, it's very simple if you put it that way. But if you make people compete with each other, they will, because you have like highly motivated type A individuals. So aligning those incentives, I think, is also extremely powerful.
Yeah, and it's so easy to compete at the detriment of somebody else's numbers, right? Like, yeah, sure, we've got more sales orders, but churn's gone through the floor. Or yeah, sure, like we're getting things out the door faster, but quality's gone through the floor. Like it's really easy to create these problems. And so yeah, aligning these objectives can make a huge difference.
Yes.
So does that mean that you're a fan of OKRs or some other brand of these types of things? Like, what do you look at?
I mean, I tell people like do whatever you need to do to like get people aligned. Like that's my spiel, right? I'm like, whatever you need to do to like get people aligned. Everyone knows what direction you're going. Everyone knows kind of how you're getting there. That's amazing. So I tell people to pick. I tell people what I use too. Like I use OKRs. I think they're great. I think they're really great for teams that are able to execute against them. And what I mean by that is teams that are given like a problem to solve, not things to build. If you're given things to build and OKRs, it's just like kind of a disaster because like, are you going to build the thing or are you going to reach the OKR and are they going to contradict each other? So if you are really empowered to like solve problems, which is how I advocate every team should be, I really love OKRs because they keep the team very focused. I tell teams like 2 max, like you're not going to get more stuff done in a quarter. I don't want you to. I need you to focus. And I've had conversations with companies that had like 7 or 8. And I was like, no, you have 8 engineers. Like you're not going to be doing this. I'm sorry. Like it's not even that stuff is going to go to the back burner. It's like this stuff is going to the freezer, like in the basement. Like we're not going to see this for a while. And that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is like with setting those objectives, you've got to choose which one you want to tackle first. And you can have 8 objectives throughout the course of the year, but if you're willing to start with one first and then say, okay, great, let's work on this for the next 6 weeks. And then we'll change tack and work on the next one.
Evaluate, like, is the ROI on this like still worth it? Amazing. And what I tell people too is like, don't come up with those 8. Like that's a lot of work. Like it's so much work. Like having some of the, I mean, I was just like, I had a product, like a lot of my time was like coming up with the stuff and like really measuring. It's a lot of time investment from leadership, from the team, from like everyone. So you don't need to have like all of these ready. You figure out the stuff you really need to do now. And then in like 3 months or 2 months, evaluate if those are still the right things to be doing. And a lot of the times objectives are pretty long. Like I tell every company that doesn't have product market fit that that's their objective. They need to get to product market fit. Everything else they do is like not really worth it until they have that. And that's going to take more than 3 months for the majority of people.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, I mean, one of the problems is that if you take away the clarity of, or at least the perceived clarity of, here's what we're doing and in what order, here's the things that we're going to tackle, here's the objectives that we're going to do, all 8 of them, it leaves a lot of execs feeling like you've taken away their comfort blanket. How do you cope with that? What are your tactics there?
Yeah, I mean, I normally tell them like, hey, we need to like make it. Like right now, all we care, like everyone, like we're in a recession, you know what I mean? Like we need to make it, like we need to get to our next funding round. Like I'm not going to be planning for like the winter. I'm going to be planning for like right now. We need to do really well. Here's the stuff that really matters. And I tell them about the power of focus. Like if you have like all these things that are looming in the background, like it's going to be really easy to potentially think about them. And then if you have an idea that could help that OKR, you're like, oh, wow, that would be awesome. Like, I know we're not working on that now, but like we will in 6 months. So let's like spend a little bit of time thinking about this. And maybe I talk to an engineer and then like the thing has gone out of control. So I am a really big fan of like saying no to a lot of things, having a lot of focus. And I'm also very aware that like I can't predict the future. Like I've tried and I failed every single time. Like the stuff that I think is going to really matter in a year might not matter in a year. Like I don't know where I'm going to be in a year. So like how do I know what this company needs to be doing given like all the things that are changing around us all the time?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some people might find this both unsettling or comforting. The fact that I see a lot of roadmaps, people share their roadmaps with me all the time. And I mean, I don't know the exact percentages, but almost none of them are ever built verbatim. You know, if you take a look at last year's roadmap, compare it to what you actually ended up doing in the reality, it won't be the same thing. And that's actually okay. It's probably for the best, because if you what you thought was the best idea at the beginning of last year, you probably just ran after and did what you thought was the best thing, and you were just blinders, you know, like you weren't looking up.
Yeah, totally. And that's why I talk about like roadmaps being a gradient, right? And them being like the things you're really, really working on are very clear. I mean, if you're building this stuff, everyone should know what it does. Marketing should be aware, like sometimes there are dates attached to things. Like you need to release stuff, right? Like people need to know, like you're running a business. There's like All of that is there for the stuff you're building right now for the next like 2-3 months. And then after that, there are like maybe some outcomes or stuff you want to achieve. Great, like put those on the roadmap. Those are way less clear, but you still kind of know what you're aiming for. And then anything after like 6 months for me is really like in a pencil. Like I'm writing in pencil, like there's like a high likelihood this thing gets erased, but I know it brings like comfort and joy to people sometimes to like see this, especially investors. They love knowing that like you have a plan, even though they're not going to keep you accountable because they know like in 8 months or 9 months or 10 months, like there's no way we can know exactly what we need unless we're in like a highly regulated industry where everything is really predictive and like it takes forever to get things through. Like there are some exceptions to that too.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, I see the stuff in the later column as, it's effectively like the mountains off in the distance. And you're sort of saying, yeah, like we're aiming for that mountain range. We're all heading in that same direction. Like by the time we get there, it actually might be more like that area of the mountains. But as long as we all know we're going up in that way, then we're not going to be like running off in the wrong direction. And we're definitely going to go up a mountain. So, we probably need to think about what that involves. Along the way, let's solve the more important problems like, crossing the bog or fighting that bear or whatever else.
Yeah, the analogy, I mean, you love to travel. I love to travel. I get to normally hang out with you in like really cool places, which is awesome. But I normally use like a travel analogy where I'm like, the later stuff, it's like, we know we're going to Paris. We know like it's going to be in that's like the destination. Then the next stuff is really like, we're going to Paris, we're taking a plane, we're staying for like X amount of time. So we know what that looks like. And then the now it's like, here's our hotel, here are restaurant reservations, here's what we're trying to do. Here are the friends that are going to be there that we can see. Like it's like that level of detail in terms of planning.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And I mean, nowhere in there is somebody planned out an exact like itinerary of all the things that are going to happen at every minute, because that's not how product is made. Frankly, that's not even how travel works for the most part.
Oh my God, I have traveled with these people and I was like, I cannot keep up with you. I'm so sorry. I need to go have a coffee. I need a break. I like do want to have my lunch while I'm sitting somewhere. Like this is not going to work out for me. I've done like abandoned trips because of that. I was like, this spreadsheet is overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been talking about, how to manage upwards. We've been talking about good objectives, practices, good road mapping practices. I mean, is this the sort of stuff that you're teaching in your Impactful Products course?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that is definitely in the course. So the first piece of the course is called Refactoring Business Goals. And it's because everyone comes with things that either they think are really clear business goals and then they realize are not, or they're like, this kind of sucks, but this is what I was given. So like, this is where I'm at. And I also give people like the option of doing a case study if they want to do that. But I think it's so powerful to get to work on your own stuff while you're taking a course and getting feedback from people and from me. So I encourage that too. And it's really around like refactoring them so that they actually allow your team to focus, so that they give your team a very clear problem, so that they're ambitious enough in terms of an objective, but they're also clear in terms of if you're achieving it or not. There's an entire session on like live critiques of OKRs, which I think has been like one of people's favorite things now, which was really nice. Then there's like a whole bunch on prioritizing the right opportunity and figuring out what that is through true like user research and understanding of who your customer is, because I love that we have a business problem to solve, but if we don't solve it in a way that customers love, we're not going to be making it, right? Like our customers could care less about our business, like unless we help them. If we help them, they're very happy and they would love to go as business again. But it's like the kind of meat of the course then is they're all around identifying that, a lot of experimentation techniques, like, and all the things like, I mean, I wish I knew when I was like starting to user interview and like analyze data and stuff. So that's a big part. And then honestly, the end is just like a tear down on like all the frameworks that a lot of people swear by, a lot of people hate, like, and I just give like all my perspective on like what they're good for, what they're bad for, which ones you should never use. Like there's like an entire thing and we have a conversation. And I also introduce frameworks that are not normally only used for prioritization, but that I think should be and are really, really helpful in terms of me making trade-off decisions. Because like when you think about prioritization, it's really about what you're going to choose to do and what you're going to choose not to do. And I think product's a lot about saying no. Like I used to think it was like this beautiful thing that I could just like go and build stuff. And like, honestly, like I say no maybe like 20 times a day. So it's like, how do you say no to the right things? How do you say no fast? And how do you say yes to like the few things that are actually going to make your product better?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've got some great philosophies on prioritization. I've seen some of your talks and whatnot. I mean, what are these extra frameworks that you're talking about? What's new in the prioritization world that I've missed?
Yeah, I think actually like they've all evolved over time. And I think it's been kind of a realization too. And I've been thinking a lot about this. Like you put out these like type A people, because a lot of PMs are type A individuals, and you tell them like, hey, you're actually going to like fail a lot, and like you need to just like understand that like failure is a part of winning, and that like no feature you release will like go viral immediately or be perfect despite how much time you go into it. So there's this entire like reframe like psychologically that I had to go through, where like I could do awesome work and things could still not work out, and then I was going to have to work on them again. And I think I've evolved that to like every sort of framework or thing that I believe in. And I actually think everything, like there's no math to this stuff. Like you can't just like not do the work. And I believe, so a few of these, like there's an entire like concept in French cooking that's called mise en place, and it's called put in place. So it's like when very good chefs are cooking, they like prepare every single ingredient. And I actually think that like making product decisions is kind of like that. You do a lot of work up front that normally a lot of people don't see. And then you add things together and then it makes sense. Then you're like, oh, awesome. Yeah, we are making that chicken dish. Like everything here works out. Like this is what we should be making. But if you don't do the prep work, how are you supposed to know what the right dish is to make or what the right thing is to prioritize? So this is one thing that is like pretty much through the course and also through just like how I think about stuff. Other big one is I really love type 1 and type 2 decisions. So the fact that like no decision is the same, and that we are conditionally taught to think that that every decision is more important than it actually is. And I mean, it's not that big of a deal. Like if you're going to change your entire brand or like rebrand, whatever, like, yeah, that's huge. But if you're going to like change the button placement, like that's fine. Like do it, like A/B test it and like call it a day. So I really believe in spending the proportionate amount of time given the importance of the decision. So the more important, the higher amount of time, the less important, the smaller amount of time I'm going to spend there.
Because fundamentally, most decisions are reversible. You do something and it's like, hey, you know what? We can put it back. I think somebody once said, take a feature away every week. When you take away the wrong one, people will tell you, and then you know it's important. I mean, it's a little bit radical, but you know what? It's an effective way of seeing as to whether a particular feature is actually being used by anybody. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it for like, your core dashboard or something like that, but certainly for some of the, the little things that add up that you added a few years ago and went, do we actually need this? Let's just remove it and see what happens.
Yeah. And even like leveraging like product usage data and figuring out like, this thing like everyone asked for and we did a ton of research on and performed really well, whatever. Like actually like only 3% of people use it. So like, do we really need this? And who are these people and why are they actually using this? Like, do they actually want to do something else? Yeah. Definitely believe in like cutting features. I think it's a very, very important skill to have.
Yeah, exactly. And also segmenting stuff and saying, you know what, of the people who are using it, are these the type of people who we want to build for going forwards? It can be really easy to build for the audience who has continued to use that feature, but isn't necessarily the audience that you want to
target audience.
Yeah, your target audience that you want to build your next cohorts on.
Yeah, exactly. Totally agree. I think the other thing that I tell people is like, you are almost like, think like an investor, like you are actually placing bets. And I tell people that they need a real portfolio of bets every single quarter. So I like doing some things that are risky in the quarter and big and like bold. I also like doing like small things that I know are low hanging fruit and are probably going to just like make the product look better, make our team look good. I like including some delight features that are really gonna kind of like take our users by surprise in a really positive way. So there's like a variety of ways to like slice what that investment thing could look like. It can be like must-haves like performers, the lighters, which is the Kano model way. It can be like how much effort you're putting into things. It can also be kind of like different levers that you're trying to pull to see if you can move certain metrics and make sure that you're diversifying your interests there. Like that is another thing that I think is really important and really helpful.
Yeah. And so how do you know if you've got an impactful product? Like, how do you measure impactful?
Yeah. I mean, I get this question all the time, and I think it's a really good one. For me, it's really like, are you solving the problem you set out to solve? Like, are you getting the result you want to get? That is what impact looks like. And it changes from product to product. And of course, there's like a lot of like ethical and other things that we need to keep in mind when we're building this stuff, which I think is really important. But it's really like, are you achieving that result? Are you delivering what you set out to achieve? And if that is the case, then like, yeah, you're like driving impact, which is really awesome.
Yeah, no, amazing. And so what role does customer insights, customer feedback play in the space of building towards an impactful product?
Yeah, I think it's huge. Honestly, like I think it's the biggest thing. I think like getting your business goals to like a good place is easy compared to everything else. Like that we can do, and it's like really easy to replicate. And after that, you're like, okay, cool. Like retention is clearly like an issue here. Like this is our biggest thing. We want to improve it by X%. Let's figure out how we retain these people. Like, what do they care about, right? Like talk to all these individuals, understand their perspective, like really get to their problems versus like things they think they want, because that's not like, they don't know, like this is our job. Like don't outsource your job to your customers. They already pay you, you know? So like learn from them, learn their problems, and then figure out as a team collaboratively how you actually solve their problem in the least expensive way internally. That's another thing that I really care about.
Right. Okay. What do you mean by that? The least expensive way internally?
Totally. So I really think that the best way teams can solution and come up with ideas is by having a clear problem to solve. Like very rarely, I think incredible ideas come from like thin air. It's mostly like, okay, we have a problem. Let's put our heads together. Let's figure this out. So I really love to have design, engineering, and product all in this room. And I mean, literally like, what is the simplest way we can solve this problem from just like the amount of time, effort, maintenance that this is going to take from us, because I think every feature kind of casts a shadow. So taking that into account too is really important. And I don't think I can do that alone at all. Like I think engineers on my team have always been extremely creative and awesome, and they're building the thing. So they can tell you like, actually this stuff that you think is hard, we already have the APIs for this. Like this is going to be easy. Like we can just make this happen. Or like, are you okay with this? Like I can simplify this feature by like half if we actually don't need this other part, and you can test and make sure that we don't need it. So I think it's really around just like the effort that it takes to build.
Yeah, this is one of the truisms about product management. Fundamentally, product management isn't done by the product manager, right? The product manager, this is where the idea of the product manager being the orchestra conductor comes in. Product manager's job isn't to have all the answers. They're not supposed to take somebody's idea and write up this spec for it and turn it into this all singing, all dancing feature, decide exactly what the scope should be. They should be working with all the different people on the team and getting their collective insights to say, well, this is one format that it might look like, but based on their insight, it could be like this. We could make it more complicated, like we could sell it for more, or we could simplify it and do it faster based on all this input. And yeah, there's so much that product managers can get if they work with their team, if they make it more approachable, their product management process.
Yes, absolutely. And I would say like that is much harder. Like working with other people that think very differently from you, that have very different personalities, like that is where I think the true magic of product lies. Like if you can get really awesome product design engineering teams, and I think like I was just like schooled on, like there was no other way I could do it at Pivotal. It was like, it's this way or the highway, and I knew that was the right way. So it is much harder, but it's also so much more powerful, because think about it. You have 3 people that are fundamentally very different, that think about stuff in different ways, coming up with a solution and bringing their expertise to the table. I think it's like a very easy yes.
Yeah, they've got different incentives. They've got different goals in mind. They've got different approaches. But this is where the idea of the squad comes in. And it doesn't have to be just a squad. I mean, you could be a product manager in any sort of organization, but you need to tease that information out from where it's coming from.
Yeah. And I would even say, like, if you're not set up as a squad, that's like a big red flag for me, because like if you're not sitting next to these people, if you don't have direct access to them, if you're not talking to them like on a daily basis and you're running a product with them, that becomes really difficult. This collaboration piece, this like getting to know each other, this trust building that's needed in order to really move the needle forward becomes really hard if you don't have that kind of baked into the culture.
Yeah. Yeah. And so how do you know whether a team, from the outside has the right culture? Like if you're looking to join a particular company, and I ask this, I know a lot of people are on the move right now and are interviewing in places. If you were interviewing somewhere, what kind of questions would you ask to find out if the company is going to be like this or like the other guys?
Yeah, I mean, great question. I like to first, like, I really love talking to engineers. If I'm interviewing or if I'm coaching anyone that's interviewing for product jobs, ask engineers, like, how do you guys make decisions? How do you actually decide what to build? Walk me through how your interaction with product is. What do you think you bring to the table? What do you think they bring to the table? What is the biggest gap you're looking for me to fill? That is a really helpful question to figure out like where you normally sit. And then asking people like, what's your like day in the life? Like, what do you do? And if there's like no meetings between like product design engineering, you're like, huh. Another thing that I think was a real telling whenever we were going to the office, and some people might still go to the office. So if you're going and you're interviewing on site, see where people sit. If engineering, product, and design sit together, they're probably working together. If they are like, I've seen companies that like they're in a different building. I'm like, what? Like now they come into the office and we're remote. Like this sucks. This is terrible. So I think that's another big thing to watch. And just like understanding their philosophy on like, how does product design and engineering work together? You can ask that, but ideally they should be asking you that. And I tell people, like a lot of people I know are interviewing or looking right now, you are looking and they are looking too. So it's like, it needs to be like a really good match for you. I know like sometimes it's like difficult when you are like excited about getting a job, but like I think doing really good diligence on like, is this a culture that I want? Is this going to help me grow? Am I really set up for success here is really important. So they're interviewing you, but you're also interviewing them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks for that. Katie Beaton in the Q&A has a question here. It's actually a two-parter. And if anybody else has questions, get them into the Q&A and we should have time to get to them. But Katie asked, if you were going to do one thing as a product person a day, what would you do?
Ooh, if I was going to do one thing a day as a product person, I'd say talk to a customer. Like block 30 minutes on your calendar and talk to someone who is not in the building. That is a customer. That can be like a contact from sales. Like make sure that you actually have an insight into what's going on outside your head in your building. Product people are opinionated in general. So it's really important, I think, to break those opinions with some real insight.
And that's some real ruthless prioritization there. And this is actually some advice I gave to a product person recently who was pointing out that, his day was filled with internal meetings and didn't have time to do customer stuff. And I was like, look, okay, this week might be a write-off because you got all the stuff, but starting next week, block out time that you're going to be talking to customers, and then everyone else is going to have to work around you because you have to make the time to talk to customers. You just have to be out there. And if there's not enough time for the internal meetings, they're going to have to deal with that because you're talking to customers, and that's going to make your internal meetings so much more worthwhile.
Yes. And then I think the advice I have for these meetings is like, I am very, very clear that like I'm attending a meeting besides one-on-ones, right, with people that like report to me or whatever, but like those normally have that too, to be honest. Like I want to know what kind of meeting this is. Like, are we making a decision? Are we brainstorming? Or am I expected to communicate something that's so important that we need to all be together? Or, and I want an agenda. Like, I want to know what success looks like for this meeting, what we're going to do. And if those things are not there, I just like normally don't attend. I'm like, sorry, like, it doesn't seem like this is it doesn't seem like we're ready for this. Which, I mean, do it in a tactful way. Like, don't like really piss people off, but like, it's really important to let people know that you care about meetings being run effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great shout. All right. So Katie had a second part to the question, which is the flip side. If you were to stop doing one thing that a typical product person typically does in their day that's not worth their time, what would it be?
Typical product person does. I mean, I was very clear about this. I don't think PM should be like hanging out in the backlog forever. Like, I've seen so many people spend hours there. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what needs so much time that needs to be there? And it's normally because the team is not contributing. It's normally because they're like, oh, you're the PM, you're responsible for everything. I have like an entire article on this. It's called PMs Get Away from the Backlog. And it's because like we actually can do stuff that no one else in the team can do. And everyone can break down some stories and like help that get out of the way. Like, yeah, it's important for the team to like execute well, but that's not going to be what makes or breaks your company or your business. So I'd say like, I would reduce the amount of time you spend working on the backlog.
Excellent. Great answer. Yeah, I agree. And I'll find that article and I'll share it with people afterwards. Excellent. And Bastow Gilbert asked a question. What's an approach to develop management skills for a leadership role while working as an IC?
Yeah, I think it's a really important question. And I have helped many people like decide even if they want to be a manager or not, which I think is like a whole separate topic because some people think they're going to love it. And then they're like, oh, all these things kind of suck. Like, I don't like that, which is super fair. I mean, like there are a lot of parts that I'm like, oh, do I do that? I don't know. But I'd say like two parts to that. The first one is I would have like a really clear conversation with your manager around like, hey, this is the path I want to take. What can I do within this company to set myself up? I think a lot of it is around like, can I help with strategy? What can I take off your plate? Like, of course, for that, you need to be doing really well as an IC. You need to be like hitting everything that you need to hit in order to make space for other things. But I think really asking like, how can I get more involved into strategy? Are there any meetings you can include me? I'm happy to like be an observer or be a note taker. Like people love having note takers and not having to take notes themselves. So I actually tell people like becoming really good at note taking in product gets you so far because you can just attend these like really high profile meetings, take incredible notes, and then learn how people make these decisions. So that's part one around like strategy and really being involved. And then part two is around mentoring people. Like a lot about leadership is being a really good manager and being a really good coach. So I have always recommended people that I was managing that wanted to be managers to have like 2 or 3 mentees. There are really good, I think, mentorship programs out there, but I'd say the best way to get recognized within your company is to have mentees within your company. So I'll tell a story of like my easiest interview of my life. That was the interview that I became a manager and like a group PM is I actually had like 7 mentees, I think, at the time in the company, like a lot of people. And I remember one of our directors was like, hey, do you like want this to be your job? Like you do a lot of this, like off hours, like this is an entire job that you can do and you love strategy. You like clearly do a lot of it. If you want to do this, there is a job that is like is exactly about that. So that's like how I became a manager because I just like took it upon myself to mentor people because I enjoy doing it. And it's not something people forget because people start talking about you. They start talking about how much you help them. And then people in leadership are like, huh, who's that person? Like maybe you should talk to them.
That's brilliant. Yeah, what a way to find your way up as well. And that's always something that I think resonates with anybody who's found their way through their careers, helping others, figuring out what people in more senior roles need, and figuring out how you can make yourself visible and known and helpful in certain ways.
Yeah. And I'll even share like with my coaching business, like that's what I do. Like people connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm like, hey, how can I help? Like that's literally what I say. I'm like, hey, I'm trying to be helpful. I think Janna is incredible at that too. Like literally anything that you guys have questions too. She's like the best, but like she's helped me a ton. And I think developing that relationship and being open and proactive, like first it like makes you look like an approachable person, which is great because like no one in leadership is trying to be like super unapproachable and like not there for people, but the title doesn't help. So it's, I think, an incredible way to just help other people. And it helps you figure out what you like to do too.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for that advice. And thank you. Got another question here. Anonymous. Do you have any tips for prioritizing strategically as opposed to delivering contractual obligations like in a B2B setting?
Yeah, I do actually. This is hard. I mean, product B2B is like its own beast, and I've done both B2B and B2C. I think the most important thing is for you to have a really good relationship with sales and really understand like what are these contracts? Like how are we selling these things? Because like whenever they're like contractual obligations, unless they're things that are like mandatory by the government or whatever. Like that stuff you can't get rid of. Like, I'm sorry. Like everyone, like whenever GDPR became a thing, like everyone had to stop their roadmaps and like work on that. But anything else that they're promising, like normally comes from a place where like trying to understand them, right? Like they need to sell, their commission based, like all that they're trying to do is close those contracts and help the business. If they don't know clearly where product is going, they will sell. They will sell demand, they will sell whatever it is. And it's not because they're mean people, it's because they need to do that in order to get ahead in their careers too. So I think the one thing that helps the most and the one thing you can push for is having a vision type. And that is basically you, senior leadership in product, the CEO, everyone needs to buy into this, creating a vision that is visual, normally a video. There's like really clear explanation on what problems you're solving, what problems you're not solving. Salespeople love it because they can go to clients and show this video and they're like, this is where we're going to be amazing. They don't need to say anything else. Like that's all there. So if you have like a really clear vision on where you're going and you are very good at articulating it with customers, I think that's the way to get out of it. If something has already been promised, like you're kind of in like a tricky situation, there's like definitely stuff you can do around talking to them, understanding the why. Like I've been successful at getting like really big companies to say that they didn't need stuff because I spent a lot of time with them and I understood what their problem actually was. And I was like, hey, if we solve it another way, like, is that fine? And by like lunch number 4, they were like, yeah, like that's fine. Like, okay, we just want the problem solved anyways.
Yeah, totally. Thank you for the answer then. I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 short ones left. Clive asked, how should the product manager allocate their time among the various stakeholders?
I hate to give this answer, but I really think it depends. It's not like a cookie cutter answer. And I mean, that's the beauty of our job, by the way, like is that things are hard and they change. But I think that's a question to figure out with your leadership too. I'd say like core stakeholders for product are like marketing, product marketing, sales, ops. I mean, I was just at a mental health startup, right? I spent a lot of time with clinical, a lot of time understanding what are the limitations, what are the things we need, legal. So I'd say it's not really there's no like one answer, but I think a stakeholder map can be super helpful. And what I normally like to do is I like to ask people like, hey, how involved like do you want to be? And then I tell them what that involvement looks like. So because everyone like wants to be more involved than they actually should be normally if you're like at a product driven company. And I'm like, great, you're committing to like being at stand up every day. Like, is that something that works for your schedule? And normally they're like, no, I'm not going to be coming to stand up. I was like, okay, great. So like, let's move you to this other tier. And then you end up getting to like a really good place where you can have great conversations. It's normally like a weekly 101 or every 2 weeks. And again, same rule of the 101, like we need to have stuff to talk about. Otherwise it's getting canceled unless like bonding is important, which I mean, sometimes it is. And I've put that on the agenda. Like, I want to hang out with you. Like people I don't get to see all the time in person. Like if I see them, I'm like, I actually want to do this outside the office. I want to get coffee. I want to get drinks. I just like want to spend time with you as an individual. And that's my goal for this meeting.
That's brilliant. I love the idea of a stakeholder map. I think that sort of thing is really valuable, is like these artifacts that a product manager should have their hands on, have their eyes on for sure. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And thank you everybody for all your questions. We do have a code here. Gabby, do you want to talk us through this if you like?
Oh yeah. I mean, I want to like first thank you everyone for being here. I had so much fun. This is awesome. I could do this all day, hang out, talk about products. It's great. I mean, that's kind of what I do now with my job, which is nice. But I am teaching this course on building impactful products. I think Janna's going to send the link to sign up. And I want to give 15% off to everyone that went to this. So you can just use the code ProdPad. Very easy to remember since you were on the ProdPad. And it really is all around like refactoring goals, like figuring out what opportunities to pursue, how to test your ideas, and then like a real tear down on all the frameworks. Like we talked about a few of them here, but I think that one, there's like just hours devoted to it, which is excited. It's a cohort-based course, so you're going to be learning with other people. People have like become friends in this course. It's like adorable to see. Like I love it. And I was even like at the end of my first cohort, I was like, oh my God, I don't get to see you guys every day. This is like so sad. But it starts on January 30th. So yeah, I mean, Let me know also if you have any questions. Like, I'm happy to like make time and answer any questions anyone has. And you can reach out to me on like Twitter or LinkedIn, whatever works best.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Gabby. And thank you for joining
Yeah.
us here today. This has been great. So thank you so much for joining us, and please do share it around. But in the meantime, it's been wonderful talking to you all, and we will see you here next time. Bye.